Hey everybody, my name is Brandon, aka the BrandoCritic, and today we are discussing Bumblebee. Now, like a lot of other people out there, I share the same opinion. I enjoyed the first Transformers movie, but I haven't been able to walk out of a theater after watching a Transformers movie and being completely satisfied like I was when I watched the first one. But I'm glad to say that the year is 2018. I was able to walk out of the theater and be completely satisfied after watching a new Transformers movie. One that it was not directed by Michael Bay. So now we can forget about the big grand story and all those explosions and the Michael Bay-isms that Transformers has been giving us for the last 10 years. And now we have a simple story about a girl and her pet robot from outer space who becomes her best friend. And fair warning, I'm going to make a comparison here to a movie that every single reviewer on YouTube has already made, and that is that this film is just like E.T. It's just like it. It's exactly the same. A kid who doesn't really get along with his family, fatherless. They meet this cute, adorable alien creature. They have to hide them in their garage. There's a scene where the alien kind of goes into their house and is all curious and then destroys a bunch of stuff. It's the same movie. So if you've seen E.T., you've seen Bumblebee. But I think that this story actually works for a Bumblebee type movie or a Transformers movie on a scale that is not explosions, Michael Bay. No, it's a lot more streamlined this time around. And people have already asked me, do you prefer the old Transformers, that kind of formula, or do you prefer Bumblebee's formula? And to be honest with you, the honest answer is that both films came out at the perfect time in my life. When the first film came out, I was 12 years old, right? I was just getting out of elementary school, entering high school. I was hitting puberty, right? And I was kind of craving more edgier humor, bigger action, and Transformers was everything, right? I found the jokes hilarious, the Transformers themselves and the action really captured my imagination. And yes, Megan Fox was like the hottest thing ever to 12-year-old me, and Transformers, I can look back on it now and say that was the perfect movie for that time in my life. Now, I'm 23 years old, and yes, to some of you, I am a kid, but regardless, I'm entering into the real world. I have myself a job, I'm done school, and now I can actually appreciate story and character, and I'm not just looking for dumb action in my entertainment anymore. And of course, because I'm moving into the real world, I do have a longing for those good old days when I was a kid, just 10 years ago. And at this stage of my life, Bumblebee is everything I'm looking for. And this got me thinking, it's funny how Hollywood decides to get nostalgic for a certain era at certain points, and just collectively we all decide to go on that path as well. In the 80s, they felt nostalgic for the 50s, right? So you had Grease, I know it's a 70s movie, but whatever. Back to the Future, Stand By Me, The Outsiders, right? And who can forget all those Jive Bunny compilations, right? In the 80s, they felt nostalgic for the 50s. Now, 30 years later in the 2010s, we're feeling nostalgic for the 80s, right? We have this, Bumblebee, taking place in the 80s with a great 80s soundtrack. Also, if you have any excuse to use Steve Winwood's Higher Love in your movie, thumbs up automatically. But all joking aside, we've had Ready Player One this year, a movie that takes place in the future, but it feels like an 80s movie with all the references to movies, video games, cars, music. We even have big Oscar movies taking place in the 80s like Dallas Buyers Club, Call Me By Your Name, Wolf of Wall Street, and of course look to Netflix, Stranger Things. We're in a sort of nostalgic period for the 80s, and I mean, I have no problem with that. But in terms of the actual movie, the strongest part, Haillee Steinfeld and Bumblebee and their connection. You know, with the Michael Bay Transformers movies, you have Shia LaBeouf playing Sam Witwicky, and then you have Bumblebee, and they're kind of like buddies, right? The whole reason why he wants to get a car is to get laid. Whereas Haillee Steinfeld's Charlie Watson, she has a void with her dad, and Bumblebee kind of fills that void, and you really do see a strong connection between the two of them. And this film goes for more of a heartfelt approach, and I'm gonna be honest, I teared up. I teared up multiple times in this movie. So that's the best part of the movie. How's the action? Well, it's not on a big scale like the first Transformers was. You know, we don't have those Michael Bay explosions or that low sweeping shot. Most of the action is shot in wide angle. You can see everything that's happening, and it's less confusing, and because we care about the characters more, and it's in a more heartfelt movie, you're immediately more invested in the action. Therefore, even though the action is on a lower scale and at lower budget, of course, you do end up feeling more invested and more engaged in the action sequences. And with those two combined, you have a great movie. Now, this film isn't perfect. No film is. And there were some things in the movie that I didn't hate, but I didn't like either. But I'll tell you right now, though, that the connection between Haillee Steinfeld and Bumblebee is so strong and so good, and the action sequences are enjoyable, that it kind of overshadows and kind of smooths over the bigger problems with the movie. So I gotta talk about John Cena. I don't hate the guy. I don't really love the guy either. In this movie, some of the dialogue that he was given, I was sitting back in the theater, I'm like, yeah, that's a little cheesy, a little corny. I know it's a movie about a girl and her robot, but I don't know. Just the whole John Cena military plot, it does feel like filler. You know, you're so invested in Charlie and Bumblebee that you want to just keep watching them, and then, oh, we gotta cut back to the military, right? Every single Transformers movie has to have the military in some capacity. That's fine, right? You need to have a plot in this movie, which, of course, you need to have two villains, and like the Marvel movies, these villains are not very interesting. I don't even know their names. I don't know if we were introduced to them via name, but I forgot them already. But I can't be too mad because they do serve their purpose in the movie, right? You see them be evil, you see them destroy some humans just for fun. It's very paper thin, but you know what? I'll say this a million times. Because of the connection, you look over it. And the best example of that are these bullies that she has to deal with. And I'm gonna say this right now, I don't think, one, they were pretty enough to be bullies. I know it's shallow, but whatever. And two, some of the dialogue that they're given is extremely cringeworthy and really cruel, like unspeakably cruel. Like there's one line of dialogue that really comes out of nowhere. She starts talking about the car, which was not in the conversation prior, and she just goes something like, oh wow, that car is really, really embarrassing. Maybe you should get your dad to buy you a new one. Oh, sorry. Like that's so unspeakably cruel. I mean, I was bullied growing up, but that's on a next level, and it seemed really unbelievable, especially coming from those girls. But the good news is Travis Knight was even able to take that little tiny storyline, if you can even call it a storyline, and then we get a action sequence out of it and some great laughs. Like I was laughing out loud in the theater, and I'm not gonna spoil what happens, but they do go on a little revenge route for these little bullies, and it's just one scene, but it's more character building, and that's what Travis Knight was able to do with this movie. And he said, okay, the focus of this movie is going to be the connection between Haillee Steinfeld and Bumblebee, and that's what's gonna hold the movie up. And all these things that would generally weigh a movie down, like weak villains, kind of a filler side plot, some bullies that are just kind of there that need to be there, I guess, because you need an 80s movie and you gotta have bullies in there. Those elements would normally bring down a movie, but because the connection is so strong between the two of them, it holds the movie up. So all in all, I give Bumblebee a 4 out of 5 because I really enjoyed this movie. I know it's not perfect, right? Like I just listed off a bunch of things that I didn't like in the movie, but because, again, I'm gonna say it over and over and over again, the connection between the two of them was just so strong. I mean, I'd love to have a Bumblebee. I mean, I would love if just one day my black Mazda 3 just and then Bumblebee. Yeah, and I want to end this video off with a little bit of a rant. It is based in spoilers, very minor spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, you can shut off this review right now, come back after you've seen it. This is a tiny bit of a rant, okay? And it doesn't weigh down the movie in any way. It's just more of my personal opinion on this little subject matter. And that is the political correctness police. And they have their hands on Bumblebee. You have Charlie, right? Our main girl, and I have no problem with a female lead. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. I have no problem whatsoever. I thought she was a great character. But we have this other guy come along, and it's established that he has a crush on her, right? He's trying to ask her out, and then he just stumbles upon this adventure with Bumblebee and her. And they have a fun kind of flirtation back and forth. But there's a scene, and it's the last shot in the movie too, and that's why it's a bit of a spoiler. You know, after they've saved the day, he kind of reaches for her hand, and it was established that, you know, she kisses him on the cheek, you know, Bumblebee kind of has them close together, so it's like, oh, are they going to? Like, let's see what happens. But then he goes for her hand, and then she just goes, oh, we're not there yet. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then the movie's over. So when you leave this movie, you should feel excited, uplifted, and yes, Bumblebee saved the day. But the last thought in my head when leaving the theater was, this guy just got friend-zoned. Charlie just friend-zoned him. Now, if you don't want your two main characters to get together, that's fine. I have no problem with no romance between a guy and a girl in a movie, right? But when you go out of your way to make the last shot of your movie, have the guy try to get with her and then nope. To me, it seems kind of like the political correctness police going like, hey, guess what? Boys and girls don't always have to get together. The girl doesn't have to be with the guy doesn't have to get the girl. But I don't think I'm crazy for saying this. Girls want to fall in love too, right? The girl can get the guy. And if you don't want that to happen in your movie, then just don't establish a relationship, or don't establish a romance, or that one character likes another, and don't have this flirtatious vibe to it, just so that you can say, oh, no, they're not gonna get together. Friend zoned. It just seemed kind of dumb. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Sorry about that little rant, and no, I'm not bitter. I just don't like over political correctness in my movies. So anyways, what do you guys think about Bumblebee? Let me know in the comment section down below, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.